Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast. Before we begin tonight, I'm actually filming this video on New Year's Eve, and I wanted to give you a look at my champagne selection for this evening. Check this bad boy out. I actually tasted this at a wine tasting a few weeks ago, and I decided to get a bottle because it was outstanding. This is it's called Laurent Perrier Cuvée Rose Champagne. It was excellent. So, if you're in the mood for treating yourself, kind of late notice, but this is pretty fancy stuff. A little expensive, but it's only once a year, right? But you're not here for that. You're here for the DVD collection. So let's continue with my South Korean movies. And there was one that I actually skipped by mistake in a previous video. And that is 7 Days. This is a Korean thriller from 2007. Now, in this one, a highly acclaimed defense attorney must successfully free a prisoner on death row to get her kidnapped daughter back. So this one, I think, has a really good pacing to it. It is about 2 hours long, like most Korean movies are. But it moves very fast. There's a lot of twists, a lot of turns. There's chase sequences. There's actually a pretty good special effect during an autopsy scene that I liked. I think the editing is a bit too frenetic at times for my liking, but overall, very entertaining film. The last 10 minutes of this, I think, are very good. Now, the lead actress here, her name is Yun-jin Kim, and you may notice her because she was in the American TV show Lost for a number of years as a main character. And she was also in Shiri from 1999, as well as a handful of other films. She hasn't been in too many South Korean movies, but she's good. I like her. So yeah, 7 Days is I think, a very entertaining thriller. All right, our next one here is a box set. Kind of I would have to say 3/4 of a blind buy, because I saw one of these movies that I was able to rent, and I bought the box set based on the strength of the one. And there was another one that was good, but the other two were just okay. And that is Temptation of Eve. This is kind of like an erotic thriller box set. So there's 4 films in this. Actually, let me show you the back first. And I think they have pretty manageable run times, if I remember correctly. They're quite short in terms of the typical Korean film. The first film is Angel, then Kiss, A Sweet Wife, and then Something She Only Has. Those are the titles. And, some of these are, there's a few, sultry, sensual scenes in each. But I think the one that's actually really good is A Sweet Wife. And the plot for that one, let me just give you my heads up on that one. So in this one, a man sleeps with his friend's promiscuous wife but is unaware of the dubious history of their relationship. So it's kind of, there's actually some pretty good suspenseful scenes in that particular installment. And I really enjoyed that one. So after I rented that one, and I couldn't rent the rest for some reason, I decided to get the box set. It's pretty good. I'm not sure if it's still available or not on Yes Asia when I got it. But yeah, it's pretty good erotic thriller set. Like I said, 2 of the films are kind of mediocre, but one was, I thought, very good, and the other one was quite good. So, if you're a guy, there's some attractive ladies in this, and I thought it was good. It doesn't get as, how can I say it, as sleazy as like the Japanese films, the Pinku films, or like even the Hong Kong films, Category 3 films from like the 80s and 90s. It's a little bit lighter. Alright, our next one here is one of the best Korean thrillers of recent years, and that is The Terror Live. Our boy Jung-woo is in this. Jung-woo is in quite a few good ones, isn't he? So in this film, a terrorist blows up a bridge and then calls a news station for a phone interview to express his demands. And he's threatening to detonate more bombs if his demands are not met. So a former, national news anchor takes charge of this in an effort to win his job back. So this guy, Jung-woo-ha's character, is, is kind of like in this cutthroat business of, the news industry, and he's trying to get his career back. So he's willing to do anything here, and that kind of sets the basis for the film up. And, this is one of those films that really kind of takes place in real time. The film is, say about 2 hours long, and it's basically 2 hours of events. It goes straight through. There's not a whole lot of gaps in time in this. So things move pretty briskly. The settings, there's not a lot of sets in this. A lot of the film takes place in the radio station and in the studio where Jung-woo is broadcasting and interacting with this guy. And then he sees what's happening on his television screens that are in the broadcast station when bad stuff happens outside the station. And this movie has, I would say, one of the ballsiest endings of a thriller that you're going to see. The ending to this movie has balls. That's all I'll tell you. So I liked The Terror Alive quite a bit. It's very good. Oh, and it looks like the runtime is actually a little shorter than I thought. It was 98 minutes, so it's a little leaner and quite entertaining. All right, our next film here is called The Thieves. Now, I'm wondering, did I cover this on my channel? I've even forgotten. Let me take a look here. The Thieves. This has an all-star cast. And, no, I did not cover this in a separate review. Alright, I'll just give a little brief synopsis here. This is basically like, the first half of this is basically kind of like Ocean's 11, is how I like to compare it. It has a lot of similarities to that film during the first half, but the second half carves out its own identity, and it goes in a completely different direction, and that's all I'm going to tell you. So in this movie, you got Yun-seok Kim, Ji-hyun Jun, Hye-su Kim, Jung-jae Lee, Simon Yam, and Angelica Lee. So you have kind of like this mix of South Korean and Hong Kong actors and actresses together in this, and I really like the dynamics between everybody. This does get... You do have to pay attention to some of the details. It's not as complex as like the Berlin File or Assassination in terms of its plotting, but there's a lot of details you have to pay attention to get everything, which is pretty, on par with a lot of South Korean genre crowd pleasers, I guess you could call them. And this is a crowd pleaser. I liked it a lot. It's got some really good action scenes. There's a few scenes involving rappel lines that I thought were very well executed. Obviously, you got, star-studded cast. Check out The Thieves if you haven't seen it already. It's widely available, and it's very good. Alright, our next film here is one that I am going to cover very soon in my Asian horror playlist. It's from 2009, which the year that we are on right now covering, and that is Thirst. This is a Chan-wook Park film. You have Kang-ho Song and Ok-bin Kim. And this is one that, it's a vampire film. A blood transfusion saves the life of a priest, but also transforms him into a vampire. And he meets this very attractive young lady. This one, again, is kind of sensual and sexually charged, but it's also quite interesting. I do think that this one has maybe a little bit of a pacing issue at times, but it is an interesting film. Chan-wook Park is, just about everything he does is basically worth watching. The second half of this is where it gets a lot of fun. It gets very fun to watch because Ok-bin Kim, I think, kind of upstages Kang-ho Song, and that's an accomplishment that is rarely seen in South Korean cinema. So it's worth watching for her performance alone because she's so good in this. And she's an actress that really has had a few really good roles, but in recent years, she always seems to be like a supporting character, or just in, she's done a few television series that did not get good ratings, so I kind of hope she bounces back and gets a few, successful runs. But in any case, it's recommended. If you're a fan of the director, you have to watch it. If you're a fan of Asian horror, this is one that's a little different and quite good. Alright, this is one that I got off of eBay. This is The Tiger, A Hunter's Tale. Now, this one has Choi Min-sik in it, actually, who is the lead actor from Old Boy. And you see him on the inside of the case here. There's our man. So if you're a fan of him, you obviously have to watch this one. This one's quite, again, a little bit different. You have it set during the early 1900s, during the Japanese occupation of Korea. Some hunters are dispatched to take out a vicious tiger that is killing the workers in the local area. And, this is one that has very nice natural environments, some pretty good tension. It's a thriller drama. The special effects for the animals, some of which are CGI'd in, are actually very good in this. In some cases, South Korean, Japanese, and even like Hong Kong movies, when they try to throw in some CGI, sometimes it's kind of shoddy. But it's actually really good in this. There's some interesting dramatic interaction between the humans and the animals as well. And this is a good flick. Again, the runtime, probably a little bit too long for my liking, but this is one to check out. It's a good flick. The Tiger. Alright, we're back to Kim Ki-duk again. I have about half a dozen of his films in my DVD collection. And this is one of his best, I think. Time. Now, this is probably the best film that I've seen that concerns plastic surgery and the mentality associated with getting plastic surgery. Unlike some of Kim's other films, this one actually has a lot of dialogue in it. Because, a lot of times when I say in 3 Iron, The Bow, there's not a whole lot of dialogue in those films. This one, there's a lot of dialogue. And so you have this couple that's faced with like the relationship is getting increasingly stale. And the woman in the relationship basically decides to undergo plastic surgery, completely alter her face. She just like disappears from her boyfriend. She doesn't tell him she's doing this. And then she comes back and attempts to woo him again using a different identity, as like she's a different woman, and to kind of restart and rekindle their relationship. But the interesting thing is that this guy is still grappling or trying to come to terms with the fact that his girlfriend just freaking disappeared. So he's stuck in this like limbo where he's like, well, my girlfriend disappeared. Should I give up on her? And should I, engage in a relationship with this new woman? Or do I continue to find my girlfriend? And she, I'm not going to tell you anymore. It's just a really interesting, relationship that ebbs and flows. Definitely, it's a little bit on the artsy side, so to speak. But I found this film to be very fascinating. It's kind of a romance with a little bit of a thriller aspect to it as well. I really enjoyed this. And actually, I haven't seen this in years. And I completely forgot that Jung-woo is in this one too, I think. He is. So I definitely recommend this. I'm going to rewatch all of Kim's films because it's I haven't seen a lot of them in a while because I'm so busy watching new stuff. But Time, I highly recommend this movie. It's really cool. Alright, this one is another interesting one. It's called The Traffickers, and it's a thriller. It's basically about this guy is like a former human trafficker who gets, I guess, coerced out of retirement, so to speak, to do another job on a ship. And he has a specific target, but that target's husband also attempts to save her. And this is very different from a lot of thrillers because it does use like the Korean strategy of complicating things and making it a puzzle-solving type film where you really have to think and pay attention to a lot of the details. And that's really the nuance to this. That's what makes this so interesting, because there's a lot of big twists, you know, and it uses that effect of showing you a scene. And you think things play out a certain way, and then it shows you more of that scene later on, and you're like, ooh, well, it didn't quite happen the way I thought it did. And it's pretty complicated. It will take multiple viewings for you to figure a lot of the things out, but I do think a lot of it does make sense. There's a few little ambiguities that I still can't figure out, but if you want a thinking man's thriller, this is actually a very good movie. The lead actor in this, who's kind of a hybrid between a good guy, bad guy, has been in a few comedies that I disliked. Like, I think he was in Sex is Zero, which I thought was pretty much crap. But he's also been in some other really good films. So, yeah, The Traffickers is an interesting one, if you're into Korean thrillers. The next one is the eBay DVD of Train to Busan. Now, this isn't a Blu-ray pack, but it's a DVD, which kind of makes me question the legitimacy of this, but it's perfect DVD picture and sound. It looks legitimate. Oh, it's the Malaysian release. That's why. So, Malaysian DVDs, just a real quick thing on that. I have quite a few Malaysian DVD releases, primarily because they're usually all region format, and they have very good picture, audio quality, excellent subtitle quality. So a lot of times you can get Malaysian DVDs, and you'll see this when I start going through my television series, which I'm going to do after all my movies, that a lot of my TV series are the Malaysian releases. You know, so they're legitimate, and I like them. Now, Train to Busan, I have a separate review on my channel. Check it out. It's a fantastic zombie movie. It's more of an action horror thriller hybrid that relies a lot on suspense rather than gore. Some people complain there wasn't enough gore in this, which I don't know. I really didn't care because it was so freaking entertaining and blisteringly paced. But yeah, check out my review of Train to Busan. It's one of the best horror movies of the year for sure. Alright, this one, I have not been covering a lot of films in this Korean DVD collection that I have disliked. My blind buys for this have been pretty solid. This one stunk. The Tunnel. Not to be confused with Tunnel, which came out in 2016 starring Jung-woo, which was actually a good movie. This is The Tunnel from 2014, which stinks. It's freaking terrible. I'll cover it in my Asian horror playlist when I get to 2014. For now, you basically need to know that it's really cliched, it's badly made, poorly written, takes place in a tunnel, there's like a killer in a tunnel, you know, like whatever. I'll cover it later. It stinks. This one was a surprisingly good comedy, almost like a romantic comedy. I think it's kind of more like a comedy with some romantic elements spliced in. That is 20. So these three guys are kind of, I think they're about to go into military, their 2-year military term, and leading up to that, they're just trying to figure out women, and they can't. So this one has a lot of good jokes. I thought it had a lot of good jokes. There is some, I guess you could say, sex-based humor in it too that actually worked, so that was good. And these three guys have good chemistry together. All the actors and actresses I thought in this movie had very nice chemistry. I found this movie to be surprisingly hilarious, like laugh out loud hilarious. But this is a recent purchase, so I haven't rewatched it yet, but I really enjoyed this one. Let me see if the DVD is actually different than the... Yeah, it is. Give you a closer look at some of the actors in this. These guys did a good job. 20. Very solid comedy. It's rip through a few more here. I already covered this in my Asian horror playlist from 2003. A criminally underappreciated and underrated film. That is The Uninvited. Now remember, this is not in any way connected to the American film entitled The Uninvited, which was actually a remake of A Tale of Two Sisters. There was no remake of this film, fortunately. I don't think they would remake it. It's very depressing. Like, I would compare this to Pulse in terms of how depressing it is. And it's pretty depressing. A very, very nicely executed, high-quality film that really tackles depression quite well. And, you know, check out my mini review in my Asian horror playlist. This one has a pretty good amount of special features. You got behind the scenes, making of, an interview with Ji-hyun and the lead actor, a few other, documentary featurettes, trailers, still galleries, production notes, an essay, some insert cards and stuff. So the special features in this one's pretty good. The Uninvited. Check this out. It's really good. And finally, another film that I have a full review of on my channel. Wrong way. The Wailing. Again, one of the best horror films of 2016. I will cover this again, do like a summarized review of my Asian horror playlist, but there is a full review of this in a separate video on my channel. Check it out. It takes place in a small town in like a woodland, mountainous area. There's a lot of kind of spiritual aspects to it, some symbolism. It's really quite terrifying, actually. And there's some classic moments in this. The writing in this is spectacular. Acting is great too. Yeah, check out The Wailing if you haven't already. And check out my full review if you haven't already. Alright, that's a good place to stop here. Probably be 2 more videos and we'll be through these. So, as always, I will see you next time.